evening. Thank you for making time for us on The Big Story. My name is Michelle Ngele Odhiambo. Tonight, President Uhuru Kenyatta is on record admitting that he wants to leave a legacy in the war against corruption. But every time the head of state makes appointments in government, several individuals are named or linked to corruption scandals running into hundreds of millions of shillings. A case in point is the appointment of former CS and PS in the Ministry of Sports, Hassan Wario and Richard Ekai, respectively. The duo was appointed to ambassadorial posts even after the bungled Rio Olympics in 2016. They're now wanted for the loss of 55 million shillings. Former Kenya Power boss Ben Chumo almost became the chair of the SRC with the expose from the DPP's office support the party. These are just but a few of the many appointments that President Uhuru Kenyatta has made recently, but turned out he had shot himself in the leg in as far as the war against corruption is concerned. The president is also on record as saying that leaders and public servants should be judged by their character and not who they know or how much money they have. Or is he practicing what he is preaching?
Where it is not who you know, that you know the president, that you know the minister, that you know who is who in which office. That should not be what makes a human being. No, it shouldn't be how much money you have. We should begin to judge ourselves by the character of our spirit. Who are we?
Well, why does he get it wrong while making these appointments? The president is also on record calling for integrity in and outside government. Again, we must go back to his appointments that have always fallen short of expectations in matters integrity.
Let us create a society that respects and treasures and values hard work, that values integrity, and let us develop a nation that has a conscience.
Well, on the show tonight, I shall be speaking to lawyer Ndegwa Njiru. Later on, political analyst and advisor Abel Onchari will also be joining us in studio. But before we hear from them, let me cross over live to our lead reporter, Sophia Onuna, who is at the city center for more insights on the same. Sophia, President Uhuru Kenyatta there, especially with his interview on Hard Talk on BBC, said he wants the war on corruption to be his legacy. But there seems to be a lot of doublespeak judging by his appointments. What more can you tell us?
Good evening, Michelle. Indeed, the president has declared that the fight against graft for him is a legacy agenda. Other than the big four, he now has come out to say the political will he and his administration has shown is because he seeks to leave this as an agenda for Kenya. Because remember, corruption is a big scourge in this country. Billions of shillings every year are lost. In fact, Kinisu, who's a former EACC boss, at one point talking about a third of Kenya's budget being lost to corruption. This is billions of shillings that could be used to provide services to Kenyans, could be used for development, you name it. So a lot could be going to this. And so this is a serious issue in the country. And so whilst many have hailed the president for his political will, and we've also seen that reinvigorated campaign, if you like, charges, arrest of public officers, dozens of them presented in court over various crimes, economic crimes as well. There are critics who are coming out to highlight the glaring discordance of, on one hand, the president saying he's fighting corruption, this is his legacy, but on the other hand, some of the issues that have arisen. So let me run you through some of those, and let's begin with what you just mentioned. We're now seeing officers from the sports docket in the last term of President Kenyatta, his first term, former CS Wario, former PS Ekai, as well as the former president of NOC, Kipchoge Keino, being charged of the loss of about 55 million shillings. Now, this happened in 2016. It's over the Rio Games. But just the other day, a few months back, PS and CS, that's Ekai and Wario respectively, getting nominated by the president for this ambassadorial position, Wario for Austria and Ekai for Russia, and they were approved. Now, the issue that arises here for those who raise concerns is, of course, these investigations have been going on since 2016. So the fact that these people were presented as nominees and were approved with serious questions on their work and what they were doing before is wanting that the president, perhaps before making these nominations, should be able to get reports or any concerns that may be there by any of the investigative agencies should be forwarded to him so that an informed decision is made. So they're having to be recalled from their positions, which they have already taken up, to come and answer to these charges. So that looking like taking one step forward and two steps back. And the same scenario, again, reenacted in the case of the former Kenya Power boss, so that's Ben Chumo. Again, the president nominating him to chair the SRC. And days later, these charges of economic crimes, of misuse and misappropriation of funds at that organization, allegations of the same coming up. And there are those at the time who called for the president to rescind that nomination. He did not. Some called on Ben Chumo not to go ahead with the vetting. He did, but in that instance, Parliament rejecting that nomination. So again, people questioning, why is this happening? Why is it that the president is seen to shoot himself in the foot, or any of the people that are set to advise him in as far as the integrity of a person, qualification of a person, that these things do not come before he publicly, officially pronounces himself, nominates these candidates. Remember, Michelle, this is a president who in 2015 asked his ministers, to several of them, to step aside over just being mentioned over graft after he'd received a report from the EACC. So is that not happening anymore when the president is considering a candidate for various positions? So those are some of the issues in question. But, Michelle, there's more to that. Let's also look at the Ministry of Energy. It is one of those that has been hugely impacted in as far as officials in the various departments or agencies under the ministry being arrested, being charged, and first in line is the Kenya Power. Remember, the boss, that's Tarus as well, the MD now, and all the top officials in Kenya Power arrested, are currently facing charges, economic crimes as well. And in fact, at the time they were charged, you saw the CS Keter quite irked by the same, saying, how can this happen? The entire top leadership being wiped out, and even made a sentiment in regards to, if he could, he would offer himself as a lamb of sacrifice on behalf of these officials. But the concern here, back to the point, is you've seen those indictments, or rather those arrests and allegations against officers in Kenya Power, in the pipeline as well, allegations in Ketraco, all this under the Ministry of Energy. So there are those who've asked, why isn't the topmost leadership being held to account as these departments are operating under them, the PS and the CS? Why isn't the spotlight being shed on them as well? Because those who argue that say that, for instance, in the Agricultural Ministry, you have seen the PS, so that's Lasiampe, he's now facing charges, and it's over that NCPB pay issue. So he's facing those charges around the pay and the delay of payments and overpayment as well. And so some say, why on one hand indict or go for the PS in a ministry and then not go for the top leadership when numerous officers under them are being seen to flout rules? So again, that's a conversation that has been going on. Outside of that, Michelle, another thing that has been dominating news headlines is the demolitions that have been going on. The president himself is on record saying that, yes, he recognizes the anguish and the pain the developers are going through, the owners of these properties that are being demolished are experiencing as this happens. But he went on ahead to say officials implicated in government, because you don't just wake up and erect a building, there's procedure to that. In fact, there's several procedures, agencies that have to give approvals. And in fact, it's not just about seeking approval and getting it. Even during the development of a property, there's that back and forth, the various agencies coming to check if still adherence to the conditions set out in law are being met. And so right now, we've seen several buildings demolished. We've seen a lot of that hue and cry around the same. What we have not seen is what the president promised, that individuals found culpable are brought to book, whether it's NEMA, WARMA, housing ministry, all the agencies, the lands that are involved in one way or another in giving the green light. Why have we not seen any of them being brought to book so far? And you see, what's worrying is that some of them could still be in office, continuing to give these approvals and perhaps leading to a cyclic problem that we'll be later on talking about more demolitions. But aside from that, Michelle, there's also the question that arises around the exercise of the vetting. Remember, on 1st of June, the president on Madaraka Day announced that there would be vetting of all procurement heads and accounting heads in all ministries, government departments, agencies, parastatals, in a move again to fight corruption, so that to vet and ensure in this line of procurement and where really the money is handled, approvals are given and all that, that is clean. And he gave a deadline. He said by the beginning of the financial year 2018-2019, that began on the 1st of July. So a month was given, and even talked about polygraph tests being used. So first concern by the president critics is that that exercise has been shrouded in mystery as to who is doing, how is it being conducted, how many officers are involved, how many have been cleared, because they were all sent home. And this impacts, perhaps, some would argue, on the workings of these entities. So the fact that all of that is going on and we do not know exactly what is happening, under what laws it's been conducted, that secrecy and that darkness, if you like, around what exactly is going on, and clearly that 1-month deadline he announced was not made. However, since then, we have had the spokesperson government, that's Eric Kirai, they talk about a first tranche of about 400 officers that have already been cleared, and that the rest who are still away will be cleared, and there are various instructions, if you like, they're using to be able to carry out this exercise. So those are some of the issues that have played out, that people have been able to speak to, that are saying that when you hear part of the political class, and in fact, the Elgeyo Marakwet senator, as well as leader of majority in the Senate, Kipchumba Murkomen, did come out early on when this war on corruption was announced, saying that it's targeted at some people, in fact, describing it as being targeted as at the deputy president. And so, on one hand, there are those saying some of these developments, contradictions, are speaking and adding to that sentiment that it is queued, that it is not 100%, it is not open. And speaking also of some of the pronouncements the president has made, the lifestyle audit, remember that? Yes, he said it would take place, all officials, and he even said himself and the deputy president. And since he made that pronouncement, Michelle, we've had nothing of it. If it's taking place, has it started? Has he offered himself? Who is doing it? So those are some of the things just being said, pronouncements being made that sound good, that look like strong political will. But where is the result? Where is the end, if you like, result in as far as seeing fruit and not just saying things because you're playing to the public gallery? Remember, the president has also said anyone is up for grabs, in essence, even at one point saying if allegations are brought against his brother, remember around the sugar probe, they should go for him. So we will wait to see if, in fact, words will be met with actions, not only in some areas, but across the board, Michelle.
All right, great context there into Uhuru Kenyatta's administration and the war on graft. Thank you. That is our lead reporter, Sophia Nono. Let's now listen in to what the head of state had to say about losing friends who do not uphold integrity.
So as we were told, let us lose friends. We will gain others as we move forward. Let us lose friends and do that which is right in the eyes of God.
All right, well, let's now take a quick look at the appointees of President Kenyatta who have been linked or named in graft scandals. For some, however, the scandals came to fore even before they were appointed to take office. For others, the scandals happened during the tenure in office, but were either moved to another docket or are still holding their dockets nonetheless. Well, let's take a look at some of this, and we begin with the engineer Ben Trumo there. Currently, he was nominated rather to chair the Salaries and Remuneration Committee Nomination Board. Chumo was nominated by President Uhuru Kenyatta, but on July 14th, 2018, Ben Chumo was arrested alongside other senior officials of the Kenya Power and Lighting Company over charges linked to the procurement of 40 transformers, a deal that reportedly cost taxpayers more than 3 million shillings. Now, in a separate date on the 31st of July, he was charged with the conspiracy to commit economic crimes and abuse of office. In a separate file, he also faced another count of conspiracy to commit a felony in relation to the procurement of transport services. Now, with regard to those charges, he failed to secure the top job at the Salaries and Remuneration Committee, the National Assembly Committee on Finance, rejecting the nomination on the basis of integrity issues. Moving on, we also have Richard Ekai. Now, he is the Kenyan ambassador to Russia. He was also appointed by President Uhuru Kenyatta, but Richard Ekai was later implicated in the 55 million shillings Rio Olympics scandal after the Director of Public Prosecutions approved his prosecution, citing sufficient evidence warranting charges. Among those charges were 4 counts of willful failure to comply with the law relating to management of public funds. He's also been charged with embezzlement of 22.5 million shillings, 16.8 million shillings in underutilized air tickets, and 15.9 million shillings in overpaid allowances, as well as 6.5 million shillings expenditure on unauthorized persons. Let's take a look there at the next appointee, and that is Hassan Wario. He served in the same docket as Richard Ekai. That is Hassan Wario. They're serving as a former CS for sports. He is currently the Kenyan ambassador to Austria. Now, the Anti-Corruption Court has since ordered the former sports cabinet secretary to be prosecuted, again linked to the 55 million shilling Rio Olympics scandal. He is among the 7 individuals charged with the misappropriating funds meant for Kenyan Olympics in the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Olympics. All right, and next up we have Willie Bett. He is Kenya's High Commissioner to New Delhi, India. Now, Willie Bett was linked to the sugar smuggling scandal while he was the Agriculture Cabinet Secretary, with lawmakers accusing him of coercing the Kenya Revenue Authority to clear consignment imported by 14 companies after the expiry of the 2017 duty-free Gazette notice. Now, the clearance, lawmakers said, was done even after KRA opposed the move, as it was in violation of the East Africa Community Customs Management Act. Now, that is not all. We also have Cleopa Mailu, another appointee of President Uhuru Kenyatta. He is currently Kenya's permanent representative to the United Nations in Geneva. He was at the heart of the 5 billion shilling health scandal, which happened under his watch. Then he was the then Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Health, and it was since dubbed the Afya House scandal, exploding there in October of 2016. An internal audit report that had been leaked revealed that 5 billion shillings had allegedly been stolen by senior officials at the ministry. Cleopa Mailu has since denied the allegations that billions of taxpayers' money got lost. And we also have Cicely Kariuki. She is the Cabinet Secretary for Health, another nominee there by President Uhuru Kenyatta. She was adversely mentioned in the 9 billion shilling NYS scandal. That, remember, was the second NYS scandal following the loss of 791 million shillings at the docket. Now, over 40 suspects were summoned by the DCI at the time, and several senior officials stepped aside to pave way for the investigations which are currently going on. Now, we also have Karoli Omondi, since appointed board member of the National Oil Corporation. But back in 2010, he was mentioned in a maize scandal while he was the aide, then Prime Minister Raila Odinga's aide, and again raising many questions as to the advice President Uhuru Kenyatta was getting there. Last but not least for tonight, you have Doyo Godana, another appointee there by President Uhuru Kenyatta. He has since been appointed the non-executive member of the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. He has been linked to the 271 million shilling Elephant Road project while he was the governor for Isiolo County. He has also been accused of manipulating the casual payroll while governor for Isiolo County there, with the court hearing that he issued appointment letters to 8 senior officials without the approval of the county public board. And so many questions being asked tonight of President Uhuru Kenyatta's sincerity really in the war on graft. All right, well, in studio tonight, I have a lawyer, Ndegwa Njiru, as well as political analyst and advisor, Abel Onchari. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining us on The Big Story tonight. And Ndegwa, let me begin with you. President Uhuru Kenyatta has made it very clear the war on corruption is to be his legacy when he finishes his term. What do you make of the doublespeak highlighted tonight?
Thank you very much, Michelle. To me, when I look at those reviews, and when we look back at the conduct of the presidency and his statements, there are two diverse and distinct deeds. It shows a presidency that is taking Kenyans for granted. It shows a presidency that is not committed to its words and deeds. It portrays a presidency that is actually lying to Kenyans. It portrays a presidency that is not faithful to Kenyans, portrays a presidency that is not faithful to abiding by the rule of law as it is swore to do. Simply because when you look at those appointments, one would wonder whether or not when the presidency was making those appointments, whether it was conscious of the deeds and the allegations that are facing these individuals. Thirdly, or maybe fourthly, it wonders whether or not there is no any other good Kenyans that could actually take up those posts, and whether or not those posts can only be taken by recycled materials. You know, this idea of government appointing cronies and friends to those who have politically failed or fallen with their political parties, or they have simply not politically correct, is why we are having this problem, because they are reappointing them as a reward. Yet we have very competent, clean Kenyans who can basically be able to deliver. But let us not lose it that even when the President Kenyatta was being elected in 2013 with his deputy in William Ruto, they all had issues at the ICC. And we simply said that because the law requires that they be presumed to be innocent until they are proven guilty, we simply said it's okay for us. And that went down to what are the most critical deed of the Constitution, and that is Chapter 6. And when Parliament went to enact the Leadership and Integrity Act, they basically gave a reflection of their own deeds. They never gave us any law that is concrete enough to address the challenges that Kenyans are having. They completely watered down the intentions of Kenyans as captured under Chapter 6 of the Constitution. So basically the presidency that we are enjoying today is a presidency that was constituted not because of competence, but because of sympathy. Remember, Kenyans voted for these two individuals because they seriously whipped their emotions as the consequences of the ICC. So basically, we never elect Kenyans never elect leaders on meritocracy basis. We either elect them because they come from our political party, we elect them either because they come from our tribe, we elect them because one of our own is facing some particular challenges. So Kenyans have never had an opportunity to self-introspect themselves. What kind of leadership do we need to put in place? Look at those appointments. Other than Okiya Omtata, who questions such kind of appointments, who else bothers to see whether or not the presidency has complied with the law? Who is supposed to observe the rule of law? I mean, we have been taken for granted. The president swore to defend the Constitution. If you look at Article 10 of the Constitution, which is a theme that is running all through the whole document. One of the themes that is running through is the theme of integrity, to abide by the rule of law, and to include people in decision making. So basically,
like you mentioned earlier, Ndegwa, the Constitution states very explicitly one
Yes.
is innocent until proven guilty.
Yes.
Several of the nominees I've mentioned tonight, nominated by President Uhuru Kenyatta, have cases against them, cases or investigations rather that are still continuing. But the law says very clear, one is innocent until proven guilty. So where do we negotiate this legal conundrum, just to see that President Uhuru Kenyatta makes sure that everybody implicated in corruption scandals steps aside?
you see, Michelle, the defense of being proven, be presumed to be innocent until you're proven guilty is a legal defense. But the question of Chapter 6 borders between legal issues and morality. And remember, the law and morality are two diverse things. The question of integrity is much more informed by the perception that people have about you. So you basically do not need, or you do not require to be taken through the rigorous process of being proven guilty for you to then to be said that you do not qualify under Chapter 6. When Kenyans enacted Chapter 6 of the Constitution, they never gave the threshold of innocence until you're proven guilty. They just gave the bare minimum. How do we perceive you, Michelle? How do you perceive me, Ndegwa? How do we perceive you, so and so? How do your peers rate you? It is purely a peer rating process. But because they wanted to immunize themselves, they wanted to cleanse themselves, that is why they have come with the argument of being innocent until proven guilty. And that is when we start losing it. Because everybody will say, I have a right to be presumed to be innocent until you're proven guilty. But we must change the standards. And don't you forget, Michelle, that the question or the idea of being presumed to be innocent until proven guilty was argued by those individuals who wanted to save the Uhuru Ruto candidature for 2013 elections. They had some people who had gone to court to question their integrity, whether or not they can actually be allowed to vie for presidency. But because the process and the system wanted to save them, then they came with that idea of innocence until proven guilty. But why is it being applied in double standards? You remember when Governor Waitito, the current governor of Kiambu, was appointed to, I think, to sit in the Athi and Tana River Development Authority. His integrity was put into question. And what did the court say? The court said, you have issues with your integrity. He was not allowed to undergo the process of innocence until proven guilty. Secondly, if you look at Article 75 and 76 and 77 of the Constitution, there is one requirement that is there. One of the requirements is public officers, public and state officers, they must bring honor and dignity to that particular office. So if you have been implicated in a corruption deal or in a corruption issue, are you bringing honor and dignity to that particular office?
All right.
Why are we not looking at those principles?
And Ndegwa, I mean, some of the officers implicated here had scandals coming to the fore even before they were appointed to the dockets to take office by President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yes.
But then again, does that appointment, despite the fact that scandals came to fore before the appointments, undermine the integrity of the bodies mandated to deal with matters graft? Because issues of integrity were named by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, by the Director of Public Prosecutions. What does it say then for the President to go ahead and nominate the same people for state offices? What
that tells us, Michelle, is that the institutions that you have created in this country, they are not working in synergy with the presidency. Either the Anti-Corruption Commission, the DCI, or even the DPP is not making substantive reports to the presidency when an appointment is due or when an appointment is proposed. Or alternatively, the three bodies are making and doing their functions and the president is ignoring them. So that is why you can see we're having this problem. And it's a high time that we try to get a mechanism of having some bit of synergy between the presidency and the institutions that have been created by the presidency. Look at how our parliament behaves. I think our parliament is one of the worst embarrassments that this country has ever gotten. If we have a crop of individuals who do not know the reason why they are in parliament, is this 12th parliament. They are supposed to give oversight. Oversight does not just mean that you're looking at whether or not a particular body has expended its budget in the correct way. You're also supposed to give oversight to the presidential appointments.
Right.
But what do? We see them just giving us, just becoming a rubber stamp. Why? Because the parliament is majorly constituted of Jubilee and Jubilee sympathizers.
All right, let me just put a stop there.
Yes.
We'll be coming back, and of course when we come back, we'll also be discussing those whose scandals happened during their tenure in office, but instead of stepping aside, they either moved to another docket or still holding the dockets they're holding nonetheless. That will be a discussion we're having as we take stock on President Uhuru Kenyatta's war on graft. This is a big story. Stay with us.